The scream tore through the canyon before the sun had even touched the rim of the cliff sharp, furious and so full of pain that Seth Rourke yanked his rifle up before he even knew why. He had heard coyotes, wolves, dying soldiers, even thunder rolling through narrow desert walls, but he had never heard a cry like that. Not from a human. Not from something still alive. He scanned the red desert, breath steaming in the dawn chill. Seth, 33 and worn from years of war and wandering, sat tall and rigid in his saddle. Bramble, his bay mare, flicked her ears uneasily. The sky brightened behind the rugged sandstone ridges, bleeding orange across the horizon. Then it came again. A scream, closer this time. A woman's voice. He kicked Bramble into a run. The path wound sharply between boulders before dropping into a narrow wash, the ground torn by a recent flash flood. That's where he saw her, an Apache girl, maybe 20, tangled in broken cedar branches, blood streaking her arm, fury burning in her dark eyes like fire catching dry grass. Her long black hair was wild, half hiding her face. She struggled to stand, slipped, and hit the ground hard, panting. A metal snare sat half-buried under mud beside her. Its teeth stained red. Someone had set it, and not for animals. Seth slid off his horse and lifted his palms to show he wasn't a threat. "Ma'am, you're hurt." Her head snapped up, eyes blazing with accusation. "You saw it happen," she shouted. "You saw it all take responsibility." Seth blinked, thrown. "I didn't see anything except you falling out of a cedar tree. I'm not the one who lies," she yelled, jerking her foot free from the brutal trap. Skin tore, blood poured. Her legs buckled and she nearly fell. "You men are all the same. You take, you watch, you walk away." Seth swallowed, choosing his words carefully. "I don't know what you think I did, but let me help before that bleeding kills you." She stared at him, suspicion and fear twisting across her face. "You helped once already," she rasped. "You can help again." Before he could make sense of that, she collapsed forward. He caught her just in time. Her skin burned with fever, breath ragged, pulse racing. Something was wrong, deeply wrong. And then he saw it, a bruise on her throat, dark, hand-shaped. Fresh. Someone had tried to strangle her. Someone who hadn't expected her to escape. Seth lifted her in his arms and muttered, "You're in trouble, girl. And it looks like your trouble just became mine." He carried her to Bramble and rode fast toward his cabin. The sun climbed. Heat shimmered over the cracked desert. The scent of sagebrush drifted on the hot wind. Anira, though he didn't yet know her name, drifted in and out, her head lolling against his chest. "Stay awake," he murmured. "Just a little longer." Her lips moved. "You saw him." "Saw who?" "The man behind me. You were there." "No," Seth said firmly. "I wasn't hiding out in any canyon." Her hand clutched his coat with surprising strength. "Then why were you watching?" He frowned. "I don't know what you're talking about." She tried to answer, but her voice broke into a painful whisper. "Don't lie to me, Rourke." Seth nearly dropped the reins. "How the hell do you know my name?" She didn't respond. When Seth reached his lonely cabin by the dry riverbed, she was half conscious. He laid her on the table, lit a lamp, and worked fast cleaning the torn leg, disinfecting it with whiskey, binding it tight. She flinched even in her fevered state. He wiped sweat from his brow and looked at her face, strong, determined, beautiful in a fierce way. She was clearly Apache, but her clothes were shredded as if she'd run through thorns and rock for miles. Dust clung to her lashes. "What's your story?" he murmured. He moved around the table and froze. Her left hand was clenched around a leather pouch. He gently pried it open. Inside was a burned scrap of military cloth, edges blackened, threads frayed. And stitched into it, the insignia of the 13th Cavalry. Seth stared at it, heart thundering. That was his old unit. One he'd left behind 3 years ago. One that shouldn't be anywhere near this land. Why do you have this? He whispered. Who gave it to you? She didn't answer. She was unconscious. Seth paced, nodding and untying his fists as memories he'd buried deep clawed their way back up. Old faces. Old orders. Old guilt. Hours later, she jolted awake. Seth flinched so hard his chair toppled over. Easy, he said quickly. You're safe here. She scanned the room with sharp, distrustful eyes. Where am I? My cabin. I brought you here after you fainted. You shouldn't have touched me. Well, if I hadn't, you'd be dead. So forgive me for doing the decent thing. She stared at him a moment, then looked away. What's your name? He asked. Anira. Just one word. Flat. Guarded. What happened? You wouldn't believe me. Try me. After a long pause, she said quietly, A man chased me. Through the canyon. He tried to kill me. Seth nodded slowly. White? Apache? Soldier? White, wearing an army uniform. Seth's chest tightened. Army? That surprises you? It doesn't surprise me, he said. But I don't like it. She studied him. You look like a man who's seen war. I used to serve. In the same unit as the man I saw, she said softly. Seth's jaw tightened. How do you know that? She lifted the pouch with the insignia. This belonged to him. Before he died. Seth felt the room tilt. Died? He was crawling? Bleeding badly. I tried to help him. He grabbed me. Press this into my hand. His last words were Find Rourke. Seth's blood ran cold. No one from his past should be anywhere near this place. What did he look like? He whispered. But Anira didn't answer the question. Instead, her face hardened with raw determination. I want the truth, she said. Why would a dying soldier know your name? What were you running from, Seth Rourke? He opened his mouth, but a gunshot exploded through the window. Glass shattered. Anira screamed. Seth grabbed her and threw them both behind the table. Splinters flew from the wood. Bramble whinnied outside panicked. Boots crunched on gravel. 3 men. Maybe 4. Their voices drifted inside. Cabin's got a light, he's in there, one said. She's with him, another rasped. Boss wants the girl alive. Kill the man if you have to. Seth's blood went icy. He looked at Anira. She was shaking, breath uneven, eyes wide. Who are they? He whispered. Hired guns, she said. They were tracking me even before the soldier died. They want what I carry. The insignia? She nodded and pushed the cloth scrap against his chest. He said, Tell Rourke. Tell him we were wrong. Seth felt his heart crack open like an old wound. Before he could ask more, a voice outside roared, Rourke! Give us the Apache girl and walk away. Keep her and you both burn. Seth steadied his rifle. He had a choice. Hand her over. Or stand with a stranger who thought he'd witnessed her nightmare. A stranger who carried a message from a dying man who should have been a ghost. Anira looked at him, fear trembling behind her fierce expression. Please, she whispered. You helped me once already. Help me again. He didn't know what she meant. But he knew one thing. No one dies on my land, Seth growled. He cocked his rifle. Outside, boots shifted. Inside, silence thickened. Seth braced his shoulder, whispered, Stay behind me, and prepared to fight his way into the truth. The first bullet lodged in the cabin wall inches above Seth's head, spitting dust across the floorboards. Anira flinched, clutching the table leg so tightly her knuckles whitened. Seth dragged her closer to the corner, where the shadows swallowed them whole. Stay low, he whispered. Another gunshot cracked. Wood splintered near the window. Outside, a man barked. "We've got all night, Rourke. Girl ain't worth dying for." Seth silently chambered another round. "You picked the wrong night to threaten me," he muttered under his breath. Anira watched him, breath trembling. "You're going to fight them all?" "Don't have much of a choice." Her eyes filled with a mix of fear and something like guilt. "You shouldn't risk your life because of me." "Too late now," Seth said, peering over the window frame. In the dim moonlight, 3 shapes crouched near his barn, rifles ready. A fourth man, tall, hat tilted low, leaned casually against a boulder as if waiting for the dust to settle. That one was the leader. Seth recognized the stance, the confidence, the arrogance. Whoever he was, he knew exactly what he wanted. And he knew Seth by name. The leader's voice carried clear through the cold night air. "Last chance, Rourke. Give us the girl. We'll let you walk." Seth glanced at Anira. "Why do they want you so bad?" She lowered her gaze. "Because I know something they don't want anyone else to hear." He frowned. "What?" She hesitated. "I'll tell you if we survive." That wasn't comforting, but he didn't push. A faint sound hoof shifting nervously drifted from outside. Seth's mare Bramble was tied behind the shed. If the gunman spooked her, she'd bolt or break her leg. Seth grit his teeth. "Stay here." Anira grabbed his wrist in panic. "Where are you going?" "To even the odds." "You'll be killed." "Not if I'm quiet." He slipped to the back door, cracked it open a sliver, and waited. The moon vanished behind a cloud, plunging the yard into deep shadow. Now he moved. Silent as a wolf on the hunt, he sprinted to the water trough and slid behind it. The desert wind cut across his face, carrying dust and the scent of gunpowder. Crickets had gone silent, an omen Seth didn't like. One of the gunmen paced along the fence line, muttering, "He's got to come out sometime." Seth raised his rifle, exhaled, and fired. The man dropped with a heavy thud. Shouts exploded. "He's behind the shed. Flank him." Seth ducked as 2 bullets slammed into the trough, spraying water everywhere. He rolled, sprinted behind his wagon, and slipped into the deeper shadows beneath it. Boots thundered toward him. 2 men this time, both armed. They slowed, scanning the yard. Seth held his breath. "He went this way," one whispered. "Check the wagon." The second man crouched near the wheels, his hand reaching under. Seth didn't give him time to find flesh. He shot the man's wrist. The gun flew into the dirt. Seth lunged out, tackled the first man, and wrestled him down. A fist cracked across Seth's jaw hard enough to rattle teeth. He struck back, elbowing the man in the temple. The fight was fast, ugly, breathless. The man's grip weakened. He sagged, unconscious. But the last gunman wasn't unconscious. He was aiming. Click. The unmistakable sound of a revolver cocking froze Seth in place. "Stand up slow, Rourke," the man growled. Seth lifted his hands. The leader stepped out from behind the boulder, moonlight revealing his face, a lean jaw, a pale scar across his cheek, and cold gray eyes that looked like they'd seen joy and hated it. "Moss Keen," Seth muttered. Anira hadn't told him the gunmen's names, but Seth knew this one. A mercenary. A tracker. A man who would kill a stranger for pocket change and take pride in doing it neatly. Keen smirked. "Been a long time, Seth. Not long enough." Keen's eyes glinted with cruel amusement. "Funny. That's exactly what your old commanding officer said right before he bled out." Seth stiffened. "You killed Captain Horwell?" "No," Keen said. "Your Apache friend did." Seth's stomach dropped. "That's a lie," he said. "She left him to die," Keen continued. "With a message for you." Whatever he knew must have been important. He insisted we find you. Seth's voice hardened. If you had him, why is Anira the one who came to me? Keen shrugged. Had to make sure she wasn't lying. So I encouraged her to talk. Seth felt his blood boil. That bruise on her throat is none of your business. It is if you made it. Keen smiled thinly. Give her up, Seth. That's all you gotta do. We walk away and you go back to your lonely little life. Seth didn't reply. Keen raised an eyebrow. You're hesitating. No, Seth growled. I'm thinking. And he moved. Seth ducked, grabbed the fallen man's gun, and fired 3 times. One bullet grazed Keen's arm. The second hit the last henchman square in the chest. Keen fired back, hitting Seth's wagon instead. Seth sprinted toward the cabin, heart hammering. Dust blasted into the air as bullets chased him. He dived through the back door and slammed it shut. Anira was waiting, gripping the rifle Seth had left her. You're alive, she breathed. For now. He barred the door. We don't have much time. Keen won't stop. Anira's voice trembled. I didn't tell you before. But the soldier who died, Captain Horwell, he wasn't just trying to help me. He was trying to expose something. Expose what? She swallowed. A deal, a secret one. Your old unit was hired by a mining company. They paid soldiers to scare Apache families off their land so they could dig gold without resistance. Seth felt a cold shock ripple through him. That's impossible, he whispered. Horwell wouldn't have allowed that. He didn't, Anira said. He found out too late. When he tried to stop it, Keen and the others turned on him. Seth stared at her. And you? I witnessed the attack on my people, she said, voice cracking but steady. Your captain tried to save us. They shot him for it. He crawled to me when they left. He said, Tell Rourke we were wrong. He'll know what to do. Seth felt the weight of that like a stone crushing his chest. He had known something was off back then, orders that didn't feel right, patrol routes that pushed too close to Apache land, missing supply crates replaced with mining explosives. He thought it was bureaucracy. He never imagined corruption. Why would Horwell send you to me? Seth asked softly. Because you questioned the orders, Anira said. He told me you were the only soldier who refused to fire warning shots at children. You stood between a young mother and a rifle. He said you were the only one who might still care. Seth exhaled shakily. Then a slow, familiar amusement crept into Anira's eyes. And you still think, she whispered, echoing her words from earlier, that you didn't help me once before? Seth stared at her. He remembered a day 3 years ago, smoke rising from abandoned Apache huts. 2 soldiers joking about driving a family off. He remembered stepping between a terrified woman and another soldier's aim. He hadn't seen the girl hiding behind the rocks. Not until now. You? Seth whispered. Yes, Anira said. I saw you. I remembered your face. He didn't have time to process the revelation. A voice outside roared, Rourke! You're out of bullets and out of time. Keen. Seth gripped his rifle. He's coming in. Anira moved beside him, surprising him with her determination. Then we stand together. He met her gaze. Together, he agreed. The doorknob rattled. The window shutters trembled. One heavy kick. Then another. Seth aimed. Anira steadied her breathing. The third kick splintered the wood. The door flew inward. The dust storm had settled hours ago, yet the world still felt coated in the silence it left behind. Seth walked ahead of Anira along the narrow canyon pass, one hand on his rifle, the other brushing away sweat that trickled into his eyes. The night air was cool, but his chest burned with every breath. He told himself it was exhaustion, but deep down he knew it was fear. Not fear of death, he'd grown familiar with that years ago, but fear of what waited at the end of this trail. Fear of what Anira might learn about her mother and what it would mean for Seth. Behind him, Anira limped slightly, though she fought to hide it. The bandage on her calf was soaked on one side, the scrape reopened from their long hike. Seth slowed down without making it obvious, pretending to adjust the strap of his saddlebag. "You can walk beside me, you know," he muttered. "No need to tough it out alone." "I'm not alone," she answered softly. "You're here." Those two words hit something in his chest he wasn't ready to name. The moonlight washed over her face, pale silver catching in her dark hair. She'd tied it back with a strip of cloth, but strands had slipped free and framed her cheeks. Her eyes, sharp even when tired, scanned the cliffs above. "You're watching for something," Seth said. "I always watch," she replied. "Especially now. The men chasing us. They know this land. And they know my tribe's way through it." Seth frowned. "You think they're tracking us this far?" "I know they are. They have horses, weapons, and a reason to make sure I never reach the truth." She didn't say it, but Seth felt the weight of her fear for her mother's memory. Fear that the story she'd carried her entire life might be a lie. He wanted to tell her she was strong enough to face anything. He wanted to tell her he'd stand with her. But he wasn't sure she'd believe him. Hell, he wasn't sure he should believe himself. They reached the mouth of the canyon, where a narrow river wound through the rocks, glinting like a silver ribbon. Seth crouched and dipped his fingers in, tasting the water. "Drink," he said. "We'll rest for a few minutes." Anira knelt beside him, cupping water in her hands. Seth watched her hands tremble slightly. She was exhausted, but she still didn't complain. After a few quiet minutes, she spoke. "You promised you'd tell me what you remembered." "About my mother." Seth's jaw tightened. "Not here. Not while someone might be listening." "You said that before," she whispered. "But every mile we walk, I feel closer to the truth. And also farther away." He met her eyes. She wasn't accusing him. She was waiting, trusting him, even if she didn't say it. He exhaled. "Your mother saved my life." "That's the truth. And?" Her voice softened. "There's more. Isn't there?" Seth looked away. "Yeah, a lot more." Before he could say another word, a sharp crack echoed through the canyon. Both of them dove to the ground as a bullet sparked off the rock inches above Seth's head. Seth grabbed Anira, pulling her behind a boulder. "They found us." "How many?" She whispered. "Another shot. Then another." Dust burst around them like exploding seeds. "Too damn many," Seth muttered. He peeked out, spotting shadows moving along the ridge. 3 shapes. "No, 4. "Stay low," he said. Anira didn't argue. Instead, she reached into her satchel and pulled out the small blade Seth had given her earlier. The determination on her face was fierce, almost frightening in its intensity. "We can't outrun them," she whispered. "Not in these cliffs." "I know. What do we do?" Seth pressed his back to the boulder, breathing hard. He could hear boots sliding on rock above them, men shifting positions, trying to get a clearer shot. "They're trying to pin us," he said. "Drive us out in the open." Anira's eyes flashed. "We must move first. No, follow me." He grabbed her hand and sprinted toward the river. Bullets struck the ground behind them as they ran, rock splintering under the impact. Seth dove into the water, dragging Anira with him. The cold shocked his body, but he forced himself to stay under, guiding her toward a cluster of boulders near the opposite bank. They surfaced, gasping. Seth pressed a finger to his lips. She nodded. The gunfire stopped, silence, and then, there they are. Voices, too close. Seth seized Anira's wrist and pulled her up the rocky slope on the far side of the river. They scrambled over broken stones, ducking behind a fallen log. "They'll come down after us," he whispered. "We need higher ground." "This way," Anira whispered back, pointing to a narrow trail that wound up the cliffside. "How do you know?" "My people use this trail to move between hunting grounds. It's steep but safe." Seth trusted her. With the shouts growing louder behind them, they climbed. Halfway up, Anira slipped. Seth caught her arm, pulling her in close without thinking. Their faces were inches apart, breath mingling in the cold night air. "You okay?" he asked. She nodded slowly, but her eyes didn't move away from his. "Seth," she whispered, "if something happens, nothing's happening to you," he snapped, fiercer than intended. "Not while I'm still breathing." Her lips parted slightly, startled by his tone. Seth released her arm and turned, climbing again before he said something he regretted. They reached a flat shelf of rock near the top of the canyon, hidden by low shrubs. Seth motioned for her to crouch. Below them, 3 riders appeared, their horses kicking dust as they searched the riverbank. One of the men shouted, "They couldn't have gone far." Anira leaned close to Seth, her whisper ghosting against his ear. "Why chase me so hard? Why risk so many men?" "Because you're the only one left," Seth said quietly. Her breath trembled. "Left of what?" He hesitated, then the truth spilled out. "Your mother wasn't killed in a raid like they told you. She escaped something powerful men wanted hidden. And she carried proof of what they did. Proof Seth had once delivered, without understanding what it meant. "Proof?" Anira whispered. "You mean the people chasing us today?" "Yes, and you knew her?" Her voice broke. "You worked with her?" Seth closed his eyes. "I didn't know she was being hunted. I didn't know who she really was until it was too late." Anira stared at him, the hurt in her eyes deeper than any wound. "You kept this from me. I was trying to protect you." She shook her head, her breath shaking. "Protect me? Or protect yourself from what you did?" Seth didn't answer, because there was truth in her accusation, more truth than he wished. Before he could speak again, a low whistle echoed through the canyon, a signal. The riders below stiffened. More shadows appeared. 5 this time. Then 7. Anira's voice was barely audible. "They're surrounding the canyon." Seth's heart pounded. "We need to move, now." But as they turned, a rustling sound came from behind them. Seth spun around, rifle raised. A figure stepped out of the brush. A young Apache girl, no more than 16, stood before them. Her dark eyes were unreadable, her braids decorated with tiny bone beads. She held a bow in one hand, arrow notched but lowered. Seth cursed under his breath. "Not now." Anira's eyes widened. "Lena?" The girl nodded once. "You followed us?" Anira whispered. Lena's gaze flicked briefly to Seth. "I followed her." "Not you." Her tone carried no warmth. Seth stared at her. "If you're here to drag her back—" "I'm not," Lena interrupted. "I'm here to warn her." She stepped closer, voice quiet but urgent. "They know she's alive. They know she is looking for the truth. They will not stop, Seth Marlowe." The use of his full name made Seth tense. Anira swallowed. "What do they want from me?" Lena looked at her with something like sorrow. "They want what your mother died to protect." The canyon wind howled suddenly, like a cry from the distant past. Seth tightened his grip on his rifle. What exactly did her mother protect? Lena met his eyes. "The final witness," she said, "and the only proof that could destroy them." Seth felt ice crawl up his spine. Beside him, Anira whispered, "What does that mean?" Lena looked straight at her. "It means what they want. Is you, Anira froze. Seth did too? And somewhere far below them, a gunshot echoed through the canyon, followed by the thunder of riders closing in. The thunder of hooves shook the canyon walls as Seth pulled Anira and Lena deeper into the shadows of the narrow ledge. Dust rose from below like smoke from a battlefield. Every instinct in Seth's body screamed that they were running out of time, whatever truth Anira sought. Whatever legacy her mother had left behind, they were now minutes from facing the men willing to kill to erase it. "They're splitting up," Lena whispered, leaning just far enough to see the riders. 2 heading down the river, 5 circling up the east wall, 3 coming directly for this trail. "Then this ledge isn't safe anymore," Seth muttered. "We move." Anira grabbed his arm. "Seth, before we go, tell me the whole truth. No more pieces." Her voice didn't tremble now. She wasn't asking, she was demanding. She was her mother's daughter. Seth swallowed hard. "Anira, your mother didn't just escape a raid. She was carrying something she saw in the settlement run by the commissioner." Lena's eyes widened slightly. "He'll kill if that word is spoken." Seth nodded grimly. "Exactly. The commissioner?" Anira whispered. "What does he want with me?" Seth's jaw clenched. "Your mother witnessed him ordering the killing of Apache women and children, then framing it as a tribal conflict to seize their land. She got away, but not before being seen. She tried to expose him. How do I fit into this?" Anira whispered. Seth exhaled, every word cutting deeper than gunfire. "Because the commissioner learned she was pregnant. He believed she'd tell you the truth someday, and he wanted all traces erased." Lena stepped closer. "Your mother hid you with our tribe. She knew your life was worth more than her own." Anira's hand covered her mouth. "She died because of me?" "No," Seth said sharply. "She died protecting you. There's a difference." But Anira turned away, tears streaking down her cheeks, her breath uneven. Seth reached for her shoulder, but she stepped aside. Another volley of gunfire cracked down the canyon. "We have to move," Lena hissed. "Now." Seth grabbed Anira's hand. She didn't resist this time, and they raced up the incline, following Lena. The ledge narrowed to the width of 2 boots. Far below, torches flickered as the search party climbed, their shouts echoing off the rock. Lena motioned toward a jagged opening near the top of the cliff, a cave, half hidden by brush. "This way." They ducked inside. The cave opened into a tight corridor of stone that sloped upward toward a faint glow at the far end. "A back exit?" Seth asked. "Yes," Lena said. "A hidden path. The one your mother used." Anira turned sharply. "You knew?" Lena's expression faltered. "I knew only that she passed this way before she died. I did not know what she carried." Seth ran his fingers along the wall, feeling grooves carved deep into the rock. Writing. Apache script. Anira stepped closer, fingertips tracing the symbols. "This is my tribe's mark for a journey. And for truth. And for danger," Lena added. Voices echoed behind them. The riders had found the ledge. "Go," Seth whispered. "I'll cover." Anira spun to face him. "No, you're coming with me." Her voice cracked on the last word. Seth didn't argue. They ran. The path climbed steeply, narrowing into a final squeeze between boulders. Seth shoved through first, then helped pull Anira out into the cold night air. Lena climbed out last just as torches flickered near the cave's entrance behind them. "This way." Lena pointed toward a ridge where the moonlight pooled across the stone. Seth hoisted Anira up the slope, her breath shaking but determined. The ridge leveled out, revealing a flat plateau overlooking the entire canyon. And waiting at its center was a small stone structure, no larger than a horse trough, its lid made of carved slate. Anira stepped toward it like she'd been there before. "What is that?" Seth asked. Lena's voice dropped to a whisper. "A memory vault. Our tribe keeps truths the world is not ready for." Anira knelt before it. This is where my mother came. How do you know?" Seth asked quietly. "I don't know," she whispered. "I feel it." Seth's chest tightened. Below them, the riders climbed fast. Torches moved up the slope like fiery insects. Anira placed both hands on the stone lid. She hesitated, then pushed. The lid slid open with a low groan. Inside lay a single object. A leather-bound journal. Seth's breath caught. Lena knelt beside Anira. "It's your mother's." Anira opened it with trembling fingers. The pages were filled with drawings, maps, symbols, and written testimony. Seth recognized some of them: the commissioner's settlement, the wagon pits, the burned-out Apache camp. Proof. Every page was proof. "It's enough," Seth whispered. "This alone could end the commissioner." "No," Anira said softly. "There's something else." She turned the final page, and her face changed. It wasn't fear this time, or grief. It was devastation. "What is it?" Seth asked. Anira held the page out to him. On it, in her mother's careful handwriting, were words that struck Seth like a blow to the gut. "If you are reading this, my daughter, trust only the man who returns this journal to you. He is the one who saved you once, and he is the one who will save you again." Below it, another line. "His name is Seth Marlowe." Seth froze. Anira stared at him. "My mother trusted you?" she whispered. "All this time?" His throat tightened. "Anira, I didn't know she wrote that. I didn't even know she left this for you. But you said," "I said I failed her." He looked down. "Because when she begged me to run with her, to protect you, I hesitated. I didn't understand what danger she was in. And by the time I realized, she was gone." Her eyes softened, but before she could speak, a shot rang out. Lena screamed as the bullet grazed her shoulder. Seth spun around. 3 riders had reached the plateau edge. The leader stepped forward, face shadowed under his hat, but Seth recognized the voice instantly. "Well," the commissioner sneered, "I see the girl found her inheritance." Anira clutched the journal to her chest. "Stay behind me," Seth whispered. The commissioner cocked his pistol. "Hand it over, Seth. I'll let you walk." "You'll kill her," Seth said. "That's the idea." Lena, injured but steady, tightened her grip on her bow. "You'll not touch her." The commissioner laughed. 3 against 12. "You don't stand a chance." "Maybe not," Seth said, raising his rifle. "But we're not running." Anira stepped forward, voice trembling but strong. "You killed my mother." The commissioner smirked. She should have kept her nose where it belonged. Anira's eyes filled with fire. Seth pulled her back. "Stay down." The commissioner lifted his pistol just as Lena released her arrow. The arrow struck his arm, sending his shot wide. Seth fired next, his bullet knocking down one of the commissioner's men. Chaos erupted. Gunfire roared across the plateau, echoing off the canyon walls. Dust exploded around them. Seth pushed Anira behind the stone vault as he returned fire, every shot fueled not by anger, but purpose. The commissioner's men pressed forward, but Lena struck 2 more with rapid precision despite her wound. Seth dropped another before a bullet slammed into his shoulder, knocking him to one knee. "Seth!" Anira cried. He forced himself up. "Stay back." "Give me the journal," the commissioner shouted. "No," Anira screamed. She stood too exposed, and Seth's heart stopped. A shot thundered, but it wasn't from the commissioner. It came from behind him. Lena had loosed her final arrow straight through the commissioner's chest. He staggered, eyes wide, and collapsed on the stone. His men froze. Seth aimed his rifle at them despite the pain in his shoulder. "Your boss is dead. Leave. Or join him." The men looked at each other, then turned and ran, scrambling down the slope. Silence finally fell. The wind swept over the plateau like a sigh. Anira dropped to Seth's side, her hands cupping his face. "You're hurt. I'm alive." He grinned weakly. "Which is surprising." She laughed through tears, pressing her forehead to his. "You saved me." "No," he whispered. "Your mother did. I just followed her path." Anira touched the journal against his chest. "She trusted you. And so do I." Seth wrapped an arm around her, pulling her close. Not out of possession, but protection. Out of something deeper neither of them dared name until this moment. Lena stood over them, clutching her wounded arm. The truth survived. "And so did we." Seth looked at Anira. "What now?" She gazed at the journal. At the canyon. At him. "Now," she whispered, "we go back down this mountain and tell the world what happened here. My mother's story won't die." "Not anymore." Seth nodded slowly. "And after?" Anira took his hand gently, fingers threading through his. "After, we see what our story becomes." Seth smiled, genuine, unguarded, filled with something he hadn't felt in years. Hope. The three of them, Seth, Anira, and Lena, began their descent from the plateau. The journal safe between them, the dawn beginning to glow across the horizon. And for the first time since her mother's death, Anira felt the world open instead of close. The truth was free. The danger was over. And the future, for once, felt like something she could choose.